how friggin' cool. Then I started to get scared. What if people could go back in time? What if I was walking around watching me? Maybe I'm over there. Maybe. Then I began to think, time travel. How the hell can you go back in time? Now I have a very interesting theory, a proof that it can't be done. And you say, well, but you really can't prove it can't be done. I said, well, okay, let's just say, here's the problem. The Earth is spinning. Okay. If you want to go back in time, you have to spin the Earth backwards. How much energy does it take to spin the Earth backwards? A lot. Not only is the Earth spinning, it's rotating around the sun. Right? Sun. Right? Here we go around it kind of like that. Okay. So you got problem one. Problem two. Now I'm going to give you problem three. Now this one is really loud. The sun is orbiting the Milky Way. Yeah, and you guessed it. It gets even worse than that. The Milky Way is moving too. Away from the center of the universe. Or away from what we think is the center of the universe, because, never mind, we won't go down that road. Talk to Neil about that one. Anyhow, everything is fucking moving. So to go back in time, you would have to push everything back to where it was at that particular point in time. Now, there's a good news to this story, but I wanted to get the bad news out of the way first, because that is really unlikely. Now, here's an interesting thing. Wormholes. Now, my understanding of wormholes, and some physicists will point out that I don't understand what the fuck I'm talking about, but there's a huge feedback problem in wormholes. Yeah, wormholes exist, how big they can get, how long you can stretch them, those sorts of things. All cool. Let's say you could stretch one to Alpha Centauri and back to Earth. Therefore, you could get to Alpha Centauri instantly. Now, the reason that I point this out is that's time travel. Because to go instantly from Earth to Alpha Centauri would mean you traveled through 4 years of time. You went back in time 4 years. So if you see something happening on Alpha Centauri, you can go there to that point that you actually see that happening. But actually the light that you were observing took 4 years to get to you. The basic idea of how a wormhole works. So the time, you're traveling through time to go through a wormhole. Now whether you can use this wormhole to go through, I don't really care. I'm just looking at it theoretically. If wormholes exist, and physicists say they exist, I say, okay, fine, they exist, so now I have to deal with it philosophically. Okay, if it exists, it doesn't violate the whole thing about moving the whole planet around, because in a sense, you are already there. How's that work? Yeah, I know. I haven't really dealt with that very well. And that brings in the feedback process. Can you really keep a wormhole open? Or does the feedback begin to go back and forth along the wormhole? We don't know. Because it's kind of like putting a microphone, that's a feedback process. And the same thing would happen in a wormhole. Maybe if the wormhole were far enough apart, it would work. Don't know. But one thing we do know is a wormhole has to be in place first, before that 4-year time travel. And the increment would be continuous, meaning every minute that goes by in Alpha Centauri, a minute goes by on Earth. And you couldn't go back. Once that initial jump, you could come back to Earth, and it would be the same time that you left. You wouldn't be able to go back in time. You could go to Alpha Centauri, go 4 years into the past, and then come back, and you'd be back in the present. And there'd be no time difference. You wouldn't have to deal with the time problem. And this is the thing, they're basically in the same time space. Actually, let me tell you, well, now you've seen 4 years. However, if you know something's going to occur, in one sense it already has occurred, so you can go back through and you can influence it. Anyways, wormholes are a little different, and they're sort of a workaround for time travel. But they create different problems because they're not really time travel, they're wormholes, and they're really about warping space. And you can't really warp space without warping time. Okay, so that's time travel 101, how it might work. Not practical. But information theory says, what do we like? What is it about time travel that is so friggin' cool? It's about having information. So I'm going to suggest to you something that will blow your mind. We have time travelers among us now. Yes, we do. And you are probably one of them, though you don't realize you're doing it. Time travel is taking information that's going to be in the future. You see where I'm going? Probably not. You have information of the future. So a good example of having information of the future is if you're playing Mario. Yes, if you're playing a video game. You have information of what's going to happen in that video game. And because you died before in a particular place, you know what to expect. Prior knowledge. Okay, bad example, I know. You're going to hate me because I always come up with bad examples. But the idea that informational systems allow you to do anything you want in terms of a temporal space. I like the term temporal space. I got it from, of course, Star Trek, which I first heard it from. I believe it was first used in Next Generation, I could be wrong. But the idea of temporal space is that we experience things. We have it through our cognitive space. So if we are purely information, we can cut and paste our knowledge. Weird, I know. But here's the idea. If your universe is an informational universe, you can time travel. So this is an interesting thing. If you meet a time travel, ask them where you came from, find as much as you can, and you can probably determine whether or not we live in an informational universe. But that would be a phenomenon that I would say would be reserved for an informational system. So if we live in an informational universe already, then time travel is relatively trivial. It's a matter of saving your current state, reloading an old state, and moving forward through time. Saving that state. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I'm sort of in that thing. With digital things, you can think of copy and pasting. You can save an old copy, run the old, you can go to an old version, and then rewrite it. We do this all the time in revision. It's a part of how our brain works, and it's part of the reason why we like time travel is a chance to undo something, right? I know. Could we do that? So that's why we like time travel. It's like, hey, we can redo. Wow! With the knowledge of why that was a bad choice. Unfortunately, it's hard to do in this physical world that we live in. If it turns out that we don't live in a physical world, well, time travel wouldn't. Who has that remote? Yeah, I don't think there is one. Hope there's not one. I'm going to be in serious trouble. Anyhow, back to our theory of time travel. So what we like about time travel is that we can go and undo things we did, or we can plant something in the past that will grow into the future, right? Go and take some gold coins or buy some stock, or, you get the basic picture. If I had that knowledge, I could buy those stocks and I'd be a gazillionaire. Okay. Planting the seed of knowledge. You know how the future's going to ride out. Now, and in terms of this theory, an information theory, if we can go back in time, but then we go back to the future, we have two choices. We can take a parallel path, meaning we can go back to a future, but that future will not have the seeds that we planted in. Right? It will be the present future because it's a copy. It has not progressed through. It still needs to progress through the year. Let's say you go back a year, and you're going to buy stock. Now you need a year to transpire. That transaction, what the ripple effect of that transaction needs to be propagated through the year that you want to go through. I'm not saying this very well. I should use visual aids and all that good stuff. But, I'm not sure how I'm going to say this. Anyways, another one. I don't know. So here's the deal. Back in time. So we plant a seed, we buy a stock, it has to propagate. It takes time to go through. Now when you're talking about a computer system, now you could run that computer system faster, or, because you're informational, you can just take a break and wake up in a year. Aha! There it is! Back to where I was before. With the seeds of change. Remember the problem about stopping the world and making it go backwards in time and getting back on the world? I want you to think about that for a second. The complexity of the world will determine how practical doing something like that is. But we will, as a species, probably, in my opinion, will probably do things very similar to this, because as we're trying to explore alternative histories. What would have happened if Hitler had won, for example? It's a silly one. Everyone uses it because they're like, what if he won? What would the world be like? And I'm sure someone in the future will probably say, yeah, I don't know, it'll be like, let's create a simulation of Earth 1943. And we'll run through the couple of last years of the war, and then just progress it out 10 years. Now, there are moral and ethical issues to some of this stuff. And we won't worry about that for now. But in some computational sense, we could do this, and maybe even have real people, or at least people that behave very much like they would have had these events occurred. But it's going to be an alternative history. It's not going to be a real history. It won't have the same texture. Well, it could, in theory, have a very similar texture. But it won't have a complete exact, because we don't have all the information we need to build that system, because we don't have the brains. Brains are probably one of the most complicated units that we have in existence right now, that are naturally occurring. Brains are a measurably complex system. And because they are measurably complex, we can't reproduce them and expect to have them do any function, anything like they would. Now, which brings up interesting points about, do brains, how similar is one brain to another brain? Meaning, could I acquire your memories as a software, by a software patch? I mean, how compatible are our brains? How would we recognize informational structures in each other's brains? Now, on first blush, you'd say that's just a crazy notion. Why would you do it? How would you do it? Kurzweil and others just sort of take it on faith that it would be doable. Now, the problem with it is, because of our way our brain works, it generates itself. It's a generating system. It's a function that just creates neurons and does its brain-generating thing. There's every reason to believe they're very similar, because ultimately, when you look at the brain, people put their speech in the same place, but if they have brain injury, their speech can move to another location because of the concept of plasticity of the brain. So, by default, our brains will wire to a certain way, which suggests that our brains are probably very compatible with each other at some level. How compatible is an open question, and that's only through a lot of brain research where we really know the answer to that. There's a possibility that it will, but there's also because because our experience writes directly into our brains and creates a rather interesting framework of dependencies. And the framework of dependencies from one brain to another would be fundamentally different. I don't know how they could be the same. Even if we are identical twins, if we had a different perspective, it would create a relatively off-centered pattern. Even if it was a similar looking pattern, the web would be slightly different. It would be very hard to mesh those two webs together. Now, why that's interesting is just because it's interesting, right? So merging people's ideas together may pose an interesting problem. And problem is sort of weird because why do we need to do it? Well, we don't, but it's good for statistical modeling, whether or not we want to create people back in another time frame, right? Because if we want to know how people are thinking and how people behave, the more similar they are, the closer to that reality we can generate, the sooner. Now, there's ways of generating informational realities and know you're getting close by observing the events in that reality. So this is how you would determine whether or not you've done it right. You have a newspaper of a particular time in 1945, and you want to know what would happen in 1945. Okay, sorry, I'm not setting this up right. So you go back in time. No, you don't go back. You create a time period in 1944, and you want to know if you created it right. So you run it forward 1 year, and then you take information from the real world and you compare it to your simulated world. And if they're similar or the same, you've done a very good job, and you've recreated the past. That's how you know whether or not your model is working, because we have data today. Now, to do that is very hard, and it's probably not going to be something within our capability anytime soon. But the theory of doing that is real. So, but even if it's not perfect, in fact, we're assuming it's not going to be perfect, there's going to be very interesting results that we can generate in terms of even faux histories. How would a history unfolded? We might be able to look at those, and this could be influential in terms of understanding how communication affects society. See, one thing that I really deal with is this era, this very interesting era that we've all been born into, and we go, oh, here we are. I didn't ask for that. How the hell did I get here? Who put the on switch for me, man? I don't want to be here. I want to be back then. I want to be up there. But here we are, here now. How do we communicate with each other? All of each other. We have that capacity. And that is amazing. Amazing. I don't know who's that guy that does that. Amazing. It is amazing. We have a global internet. And this internet can communicate with the entire world. Over 1 billion people use YouTube. That is 3 times the number of people in the United States. That's a lot of people. It's just a fraction, still, of the entire population of the world. But it's a large fraction, and that's impressive in and of itself. YouTube is a reality in and of itself. It's not time travel. But we are planting seeds for the future. We're planting our ideas for the future. So, I want to get hits. I want to get likes. I want to get subscribers. I want to get these things. But there's also another reason that I do it. I do it for the future. For my time travel itself, when my person in the future, whoever that person is, will go, oh yeah, hey Mark, I'll bring you into the future. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'm just kidding. But how do you communicate with the future? You can't really. You do. I mean, we do. When we write something down or we make something, we're communicating maybe with somebody directly now, or we may be communicating with somebody in the future. Why would you want to do that? Well, because we have many emotions about our present. And we have many concerns about our future. We, as a species, as one species on this planet, let's not forget that, and this is to you, future singularity, entity, whatever you are, I know that I am just but one species. So be kind to me, and forgive me for all my trespasses, whatever they were. Does this sort of seem like a religious sort of thing when I'm speaking to God, as I speak to the singularity? Ray Kurzweil makes a lot of jokes, and very subtle jokes about the future. And I was like, first when I heard him speak about it, I was like, well, one of them was, well, we haven't created God. Or, how was it? It was something like, well, God doesn't exist. Yeah. Singularity is an interesting concept. That we are going to influence, you and me. YouTube is going to have a huge influence on the singularity. If I'm the singularity, I'm really, really smart, I'm the singularity, I'm going to go, who are these human things? What do they want? What do they do? What do they think? Do they know anything about me? Have they thought about me? Maybe they have. Huh. What did they say about me? Singularity. How are you doing? Yeah, my name's Mark. Remember me? Be nice, please. That's the thing you can do, is you can talk to the future, and that future might have an impact on you. And it's an interesting thing to think about. Is it important that we think about that? Maybe it is important. But I think planning for the future, making sure there is a future, should be important to us. I think it should be a part of our ethic. I want there to be a future. I want there to be a future for everyone. I don't want anyone to die. I don't need anyone to die. I don't need anyone to go away. I want everyone just to simply have a future. That's a positive thing. Even if I don't agree with someone's philosophy, the one thing that scares me the most is when they say we don't have a future, or our future is in heaven. You, sir, if you believe that, you, man, if you believe that, you are a scary motherfucker. Because that means your investment in my world is not here. You're investing for something else. Something else that I would say does not exist. Heaven does not exist. The people that died are dead. I'm sorry. I wish there was something I could do. But we don't yet live in an informational universe that we can control. But if you work with me, and you work with other like-minded people, we can create a future where people don't have to die. Death is by choice, and choice alone. The choice is yours. We don't have to assume that we don't have a future. And to assume that we don't have a future before we have really even started is a tragedy of an immense proportion. And so when I think about the future, when I think about time travel, I think in terms that are real. My words will travel into the future, whether I live or die. That is important to me. It may not be important to anybody else. But at least I will have given them the opportunity to care. Give me the opportunity to care. I care. You should care too. We should all care. I care about the truth. I care about the truth so much that I'm willing to sacrifice my immortal soul for the truth. It's kind of a joke. But what I mean by that is, if a God does exist, like a G-O-D-O, Christian God, or Muslim God, or Buddhist God, or gods, polytheists, right? Hindus are polytheists. Anyways, if any of these gods actually exist, and then I didn't do something for them that I was supposed to do, because to do for them will show them how much I love them. I'm not being mean. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Maybe I am. This is YouTube. Nobody listens to YouTube. The world does not revolve around YouTube. Now, I'm going a bit crazy here. Because I'm crazy. How do I know I don't have a tumor in my head? We don't know. Ultimately, reality, we don't know the actual underlying rules of reality. There are many possibilities. Many things are on the table that are possible. So when people argue about, I know what the truth is, you don't. I don't know what the truth is. I want to know. I don't want to waste my time on things that can't possibly be true. If I could prove to my satisfaction that singularity could not occur, I wouldn't believe it. I'd say let's waste of time. Let me find something else. And to be fair, I don't really care that much about the singularity. What I believe in is that we have an amazing future if we want, if we care about it, and if we care enough to want to understand it. If I'm anything, I'm a futurist. But that's a credential that I haven't earned. I listen to futurists because they care about the future. They're trying to project into the future. When someone tells me, like Al Gore is, I'm going to pick on his ass because his ass needs to be picked on. He's kind of stupid. No, he's not stupid. He just doesn't get it. Now, to be fair to him, he wrote a book about the future. And he keeps talking about climate. Climate this, climate that. I know. Big fucking deal. We can't really do anything about it. Or we are doing things about it. Just knowing about it, I guess it's okay. But don't over fucking react to it. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not denying climate change. It's occurring. Okay, whatever. It's not that interesting. And it shouldn't affect policy that much. Because ultimately, the solutions for climate change are going to be technology. You need to understand how technology is going to get us out of our problems. Policies can influence technology, but it might be influencing technology in a negative way. Really investigating and really understanding what technologies will work and what technologies won't work is pretty important. But you need to diversify in such a way that you are developing a lot of different technologies and seeing where they can go and not squashing them before they get a chance to take off. And that is more critical than whether or not there's climate change. It's just, may or may not happen. Quality of life does not have to go down. Quality of life can still go up. But you've got to invest in technology. Because technology is our only solution out of this. We can't go back. There was no solution in the past. It does not exist. There are too many people in the world for the old technology. But there aren't too many people in the world for newer technologies. We know that these technologies can come into existence. And so when I talk about the future, people say, well, living forever is bad. Well, bad only if you're biological. If you're a computer, what the fuck does it matter if you still exist? If I'm just an algorithm, you can turn me off for a while if I'm taking up too much power. You can turn me back on when you got a little extra power. I'll be that guy. I'll say, oh, I'll take one for the team. I'll take a couple years off. And you can just power me back up. There he is. Hi, thanks for turning me on. I have a strange way of looking at it. But it's the right way to look at it. Okay. No, don't go. No. Anyways. I watch too much YouTube. People get away with amazing things. It works for them. Well, it works for me, I doubt it. The most vilified internet personality. That could be me. Yeah. It's not something I strive for, truly. Though it feels like it right now. Why do I insist on talking about the future? Why is it important? It's an appreciation of technology, but I've grown to appreciate engineering more as a discipline of thought. Eric Drexler is one of my heroes. I appreciate his sincerity, and I appreciate his dedication to engineering. Now, I'm not an engineer by trade. I'm an engineer by infusion. I have too many engineers around me not to be kind of engineering. But, principally, we have not looked at engineering as a discipline separate from science. And I think it's important that we realize that many of the problems that we have are not truly scientific problems. They're engineering problems. And one of those problems that I think is really interesting, and Drexler, though his intent was not about social commentary or ethics, but ethics is an engineering problem. It's not a science problem. Now, Dilettante is correct. It's secular. We don't need God to create ethics. Evolution created a set of working ethics, and I think you can go and you can see what those working ethics and what they are and how they work. They are working ethics. And writings, sentiments, philosophical sentiments, reflect what I would call a basic, core value system. Some of those values are reflected in such ideas as the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But if you think about it, it makes sense from an evolutionary point of view as well. Trust. If I know you will do for me as I would do for you, then I can, in a sense, have a trust for you. We have bonded. We will all for one and one for all. We have a bond. It brings a social structure together. Do for me as I would do for you. And when we reciprocate on that channel of mutual agreement, then our society grows. And because we are a social animal and because of our advantage as being a social animal, of being able to work together, is so important in the past and in our future. That's where ethics comes from. It's the social bonding. It's really, when you talk about ethics, you're talking about social bonds. When we talk about the difference between ethics and law, for example, we're saying how law is not performing the social function that it should. And maybe it can't. I'm not clear on that, to be honest with you. But I do believe we should separate the two. Why our law is not necessarily conforming to our social standards. Shouldn't laws reflect our social sensibilities? And when they can't, why can't they? We need to be very clear about that. Like, for example, one of the principles of punishment. Punishment's sort of my pet peeve. It's not that I necessarily have a problem with punishing someone, but I just don't want to pay for it. Punishing someone does nothing for me, and does nothing for society, ultimately. Corrective discipline, yes, that does something for me. Punishment is a deterrent, and I accept that. It is a deterrent. It will prevent good people from being bad. To what extent? We need to ask. We need to be careful. Can we get to a point in society where we can look at something like punishment and say, well, he deserves it, and realize, but do we deserve it? When you punish someone, it costs money to punish them, A. It doesn't undo, if you murder somebody, or somebody murders somebody, it doesn't bring them back to life. In the future, I can do that. Go to backup. They'll lose a day or two. That's it. But my point being here is this. You murder somebody. They're dead. They're gone. We can't bring them back. What does punishing do? Really? I'm not being mean. I care about the person that dies. Don't think I don't care about the person that dies. I do. But I know, and you know too, if you ask yourself honestly, punish this guy comes back. Ain't gonna happen. I wish it would, but it ain't gonna happen. And you need to get in that frame of mind. Okay, so what is it that I really care about? Okay, I don't want to get doing it yet. Now, some people say I don't want to profit from it. we don't want someone to profit from it is more than punishment. It's not really a punishment issue. It's encouragement for someone else to commit that crime. If they know they can commit the crime and profit from it, even after they've been convicted of it, that is a bad message. A really bad message. And I think you know who I'm talking about. Bankers. Not good. Not good at all. You need to put them in jail. Why? It's serious. It's serious. Yeah, but the problem is, and I accept this, the problem is with that, we should have a way by which to punish. But the problem is, we set ourselves up for it. Because we don't have regulation. Well, who didn't? Okay, you know where I'm going with that. It's a big problem, and we need to really address it. But punishing people won't address the problem. It ain't going to go away by just punishing someone. Someone else will do it. It's sort of... In the banking, we see it, we understand it, because too big to fail. We fucked up. We put too many eggs in one basket, we let everything fall apart. Now you're going to say, but it's all over the fucking map. Everything is related. Everything is related to everything else. That's the 6-year-old in me speaking. I see things in terms of how they relate to each other, and I don't see anything as being totally separate. Which is bad, right? It's kind of bad. You really want to compartmentalize things a little bit here. But I want to sort of bring other things in to show you that they are related. And our future is related to our present. What is our future? The best way, yes, the best way to predict the future is to create it. That is an engineering position. That is a position we need to think in terms of law, in terms of ethics, in terms of whatever else you want. We can create it. It's not about what was. It is about what can be. What about the past tells us what can be? That's how you use history. You don't use history as a means to tell you the way it should be. No. The way it should be is the way you want it to be. It can be engineered if you accept responsibility for the way things are, not the way you would like them to be. This is the frustration that everything gets tainted by religious thinking. Every aspect of our lives gets tainted. I was told to comfort. I was hoping that it wasn't important, that beliefs, religion, it wasn't really important to social change. It wasn't important to the problem. It wasn't important. I was hoping for that because it makes it a hell of a lot easier. I don't want to change religions. I don't give a shit if a religion, if someone believes something. But unfortunately, I have to care. Because their beliefs affect what they do. They affect our reality now. So, why are you atheists? I guess, for lack of a better word, I'm an atheist. But I don't care about atheism. What I care about is getting shit done. Getting good shit done. The engineering problem. How do we make the world better? We can't make a world better when people can't communicate honestly. Now, Sam Harris goes crazy on this notion. He even wrote a book about lying. How you shouldn't lie. Not even a white lie. You really need to justify that lie. Not even a white lie. Okay. He doesn't believe in white lies. He says you need to be honest. You need to do everything you can to be honest. Even if it puts you in an awkward position. And there's a really important point to that. And it's an important point he wants to say ethically. If I believe this is true, I need to demonstrate it all the time. But he can be an ass. And I called him out on that and no one cared. That's okay. That's okay. It's okay. I don't care either. It's not important. It's just an idea. I mean, just me thinking about ethics. But wouldn't you rather me be nitpicky and simply let people get away with things? Certainly it's a small, minor infraction, as infractions go. But deep within the heart of a video, there is a confession. And this is my confession. I don't care that much. I am okay with being called an Islamophobe. I don't really give any stock to the word. And I wish other people would just simply brush it aside as rhetoric. Or better yet, as, yeah, I'm an Islamophobe. And that's okay. You should be an Islamophobe too, because those people are freaking crazy. And you should be afraid of crazy people. Now, that's not necessarily mean that they're dangerous. As an individual person, they may not be dangerous. But they are carriers for an idea. And this idea that a person can be a carrier for an idea. I'm a carrier for many ideas. Some of my ideas are probably scary to many people. Some of them are scary to me. But I am a carrier of ideas. And I project these ideas in various ways. So, when you attack an idea, and this is what's frustrating to anyone that attacks religion, is you're not attacking the people, or at least you shouldn't be. You're attacking the ideas that they carry in their heads. Those ideas are dangerous. They're dangerous to you, they're dangerous to everyone else. You are acting on those behaviors because you, on those beliefs, because you think they're real. They're not. I'm not going to prove it now. Other people will prove it for me. But let me just tell you how I feel. They are not true. I will argue with anybody. I will debate anybody if I have the time, if there's an opportunity. You want to prove to me that something is true that I say is fundamentally not true? I'm okay with that. Emotionally, I understand your need to prove to me that your beliefs are real. I understand that. I'm okay with that. I spent my entire life being okay with that. No, not really. Communication is ethics. When I studied philosophy at the University of Cheney, Eastern Washington University, that I call it, sorry, I had a brain fart there for a second. One of the classes I took was on ethics. And I got an opportunity to read the current crop of books on ethics that the philosophy instructor wanted his students to read. He says, these are books I don't have time to read. Read them for me. Give me a book report. Huh? It's a good idea, really. Think about it. He wanted us. He says, he trusted us. He said, well, you guys got good minds, and I can ask you questions, and I have you go back to the ideas, and we can sort of hash it out. But it was a good exercise to put us through how to analyze reading a book. But one of the main themes that stuck with me, and has stuck with me ever since, is the idea of dialogue and the importance of dialogue. In the future, you're going to be a different person. So making yourself in the future do something that your previous self told you to do, is that ethical? Are you free? Now, don't go too far on that at this particular point in time, but the realization that you need to be free to be able to make decisions, and not to be told what to do, but to be given the tools to decide the best course of action. That is dialogue. When an atheist, a good atheist, and this is, I'll define a good atheist for you, or someone is an active anti-theist. The reason they're anti-theistic is because you are making decisions based on someone else's belief. They're not really your belief. You behave as if they are your belief because you are emotionally attached to them. But few people that believe in God, and there are some that do, believe in the rhetoric. They more or less accept it as a part of them, but they don't understand the true implications of that rhetoric. And it's a problem. And releasing people from that rhetoric and saying, look, you can't take it on faith. You can't. Because you're enslaving yourself. You're enslaving your mind to something that you don't understand. You're going to make decisions based on something that can't possibly help you in a given situation. Well, that's not entirely true. There are situations where it may accidentally help you. It's kind of like the idea that if I don't put my seatbelt on, I could be in an accident where if I had my seatbelt on, I would have died. Yeah, there are accidents. There's a certain percent of accidents that because you're wearing your seatbelt, you'll die. And if you'd not been wearing your seatbelt, you would have lived. That's kind of fucked up, right? But here's the but part. The majority of the time, it's going to save your life if you're in an accident where you could die. Anyways, so you can see what I'm saying. The argument that it does exist, an opportunity where a behavior will work for you, you have to ask, will it work for you all the time? Some of the time? Most of the time? How effective is it? Now, I'm a very outcome-oriented sort of guy. So I don't really, what are the results of believing that? How does it work in reality? Do you need one thing for the other? So, for example, can you meditate without believing in God? Can you pray? Go through the act of praying without believing in God? Prayer is good for the prayer, but does nothing for anyone else. And that's okay, right? It's good for the person that prays. So, go ahead, pray. Pray for yourself. Because that's really who you're praying for, regardless of who you think you're praying for. You're praying for yourself. That is effective prayer. And taking time to say grace may be good for you. I'm okay with that. I don't need to change that about your behavior. What I do need to explain to you is the woman's right to choose. Now, I understand. Life is important, and I think we should all value life dearly. But preventing a woman from choosing to be a parent or not being a parent when it's appropriate, and then we have to define what appropriate is, but truly, it benefits society by giving a woman that right. Now, it's not a right that I want to give to a man. Now, if the woman chooses to offer a part of, hey, do you want to have a baby? Would you want to be a parent with me? If there's that kind of discussion, that's her choice. And in a sense, I would say this to a woman that's trying to make a choice. The choice is yours. I know it's not fair, but the choice is yours, not someone else's. How do you feel about it? There are agencies that will help you have a child if you want to. There are agencies that will help you give that child to adoption if you want to. But it's your choice. And the reason I make it your choice is because I want to empower you to be whoever you want to be. I do not want you to be saddled with the guilt of giving up this potential life. Please do not saddle yourself with that guilt. It's not worth it. Every day, life is lost. This is not a life that we need to worry about. If you want to cherish your life, cherish your own life first. And if you have room and you have capacity for someone else and you really think it's going to benefit you and make your direction easier, something you want to invest in, then do it. But I do recommend talking to someone about those choices, especially if you want to be a parent. Do you really know what it entails to be a parent? Have you really seriously considered it? Because parenting is so do I need to use more sauce? Important. We can't take parenting lightly. Pro-choice is pro-parenting. Are you going to be a good parent? Now, know this, that everyone makes mistakes. But being honest with yourself and being honest with everyone around you is fundamentally more important than many of the things that you will hear. I realized, for me, that life is important. How do you celebrate life? Is it by forcing someone to become a parent? It's about valuing the life we have, not the life we could have. And I say potential life. A zygote, or a barely formed fetus, is beginning life. The community doesn't have a lot invested in it. There's not a lot invested in that particular life. We need to invest in what already exists first, and then if we have extra resources, give it to new life. But then when we do invest in a new life is very important. We need to be able to invest fully in that, and then make a full commitment to that life, not be forced to make that commitment. Who wants to have a parent that says to them, I never wanted to be a parent? Well, you could have adopted. There's problems with adoption. There's problems with all the scenarios. Abortion's not impossible. It's not a wrong option. It's just important that choice be given to women. Now, I know that it's the right decision for society to make. There's an emotional component, and that is what I addressed there, how it feels. I want a woman to feel okay about making that choice. I want them to learn from making that choice. But society benefits from giving women the right to choose. We benefit. Societies that force their women to give birth, or cultures or communities that force women to give birth, are poorer societies. Are poorer societies. Inadvertently, or inadvertently, I don't know if it was done on purpose, but it does enslave women to their reproductive function. We need women to be full members of society, not a single functional member of society. It devalues women to force them to give birth. And by devaluing women, we devalue society, we devalue life. The very thing that you hold so precious, you're devaluing. People argue with me on that, and that's okay. But I have come to an understanding of why I support that position. I didn't always have that belief. I didn't have that position. I was open because I understood the idea of the importance of life and that we need to value life because ultimately we are only life. We are one life, one with life. We are infinitely important to ourselves because without ourselves we cannot experience life. So we are. Life is important. But there's a point at which you didn't have to be. You didn't know that you were going to exist. You didn't make a decision. I did not make a conscious choice to exist. I don't have the capacity to make that choice. My parent had to make that choice for me. The ultimate choice that a parent makes. And if my mother said, you will not be, I would not be here today. That was her choice. I'm here because she chose to have me. That's powerful. Your parents chose to have you. My son is here because I chose to have him. Well, my wife chose to have him. That's a powerful thing to say. I'm not here because someone told me I had to be here. I'm here because someone chose to have me here. I said, I want a child. Here, there you are. To me, that was the most powerful realization. The choice to be a parent. Would you want to take that away from a child? Would you want to say to that child, we value you so much that we devalue your mother? And if that child's a woman, she'll have to deal with the same devaluation if she gets pregnant. No. The investment in time, the investment in society of a viable female, she's more valuable than that fetus by far, as a general rule. Think about that. You're devaluing the mother by overvaluing the child. We have nothing invested in that child. Society doesn't even know it exists. We have nothing invested. The idea of social investment is complicated. Only in the sense that we have to evaluate it hierarchically. You can't say that everything is equal. It doesn't work. It's meaningless to say everything is equal. And it's in a binary sense. You can't have information. You can't have meaning without difference. Bits have differences. It's either on or off. It can't be both on and off. Unless, of course, it's a quantum computer, which we're not talking about. It is or it is not. It is equal or it is not equal. At a minimum, we have to make that distinction. If it is equal, if everyone is equal, I'll prove to you they are not equal. And you will agree with me, and you probably already do before you even go down that road. People are not fungible. For example, a fungible item would be like a dollar bill. I pull out a dollar bill and say, hey, can I get your dollar bill for my dollar bill? And you look at it, what's with your dollar bill? What's wrong with it? Oh, I don't know, I just want a different one. Oh, okay. So you switch. Interchangeable, fungible. Boop, boop, boop. $1 is any other dollar. It's just a marker of money. Okay, people. Are they fungible? Is your wife as good as my wife? Maybe, but I don't think so. You prefer your wife over my wife. But I might prefer your wife. But I'll probably prefer my wife. Got it? Very simple. People are not fungible. That means you cannot say that all people are equal. They're not. Sorry. It's actually interesting why that is very, very, very true. They're informational constructs. One book is not the same as any book. We know that to be true. But the same book is the same book. That's true. We would exchange the same book. If we wanted that book, maybe we want a different book, so we exchange one book for a different book. Because we want to read a different book, but that's different. If people are into wife swapping, maybe that would happen too, right? But we're not fungible. Your child is not my child. I'm sorry. I'm sure you love your child very much, but it's not the same. Would we equate one life to another life? You can't do it. Not even on a society level can you do it. The President of the United States is not the same as Jeffrey Dahmer. Right? Whose life is more valuable? Oh, well, I know. You think that he's not valuable. But at a society level, he has more value. You can't equate one life for another. They don't work like that. Lives are not lives. They're complicated. They're interconnected with the community, and they have community value. That is how we determine the value of a life, is how connected they are with the community. You want to know how valuable you are? The question is how connected you are to the community, and how much you'll be missed. That's your value. Your monetary value is one measure of who you are. But if you want who you are, is truly measured by what you offer to the community. It's the way it is. Well, I'm just as valuable as someone else. No, you're not. Nor am I. Sorry. I am valuable, infinitely valuable to myself, of course. And we need to value that in individuals. I value the fact that I know that you are infinitely valuable to yourself. And I will protect that, as I would want people to protect that me. But I'm not going to make choices that hurt other people more. Because I value you as the same as someone else. It gets us into trouble. Because we're not equal. And it would be really kind of cool in one sense if we were equal, because then everything would be so mathematically simple. Well, it's complicated. So the best thing to do is to try to value all lives as much as possible. I recently listened to a debate on giving and the equation argument that I'm talking about here. If I can spend $40,000 and help one person, or I can spend $40,000 and help 1,000 people, which should I do? You see my problem with that. People are not fungible. And your choice of who to help can be dependent upon your relationship and their relationship in your community. It's important. It's relevant. So helping a bunch of strangers in another country, it's not as important as helping my neighbor. You okay with that? I'm not saying that helping strangers in another country isn't important, and thank you, Bill Gates, for being that person to help those people. I'm going to let you make those good decisions. If you need my help, you have my phone number. Give me a call. I'm there for you. But I know what my neighbor needs. I know what the needs of my community are. I don't really know what the needs of another community are. I can learn about it, I can spend time. But my bang for the buck may be applied to that. It may be a good decision to make. But it's not a simple decision to make. Simply giving to most bang for most buck may not be the best choice for me to make with my giving. Because our communities matter. And we need to have healthy communities. And I need to look at my community. What will help my community the most? So I kind of resent those calculations. But I understand them. And I would consider them as a part of the equation. But I don't want to consider it as the only part of the equation. Because life is not fungible. Some people are more valuable, at least to me. And I don't want my son being treated like a mass. Anyways, separation, who we are as a species, who we are as a growing species. When we think about what we should do with our lives, how we should deport ourselves, we need to ask who we are. And the reason we need to ask who we are is so that we know that we're doing what we are, not what somebody says we are, or something that someone says we should be. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, who can you be honest with? And that's what it boils down to. Back to Sam Harris's book, Lying. I've often said, I've often believed, and of course in sort of a fallacious way, lying to yourself is the worst kind of lie. It's the worst kind of lie because it's a fundamental lie. It's a lie that eats at you. It's a lie that tears you apart. If you know it's a lie. Sometimes you don't know it's a lie. Sometimes you believe it. And when you investigate, you find out, oh my goodness, I've been lying to myself. I wanted to believe this to be true, but it's not. Soul searching is a matter of looking for the truth in an atheistic way. It's a matter of saying, what is it about me that I like? And you know, ultimately, if you don't like yourself, it's very hard to do things that are good. And these are psychological principles that are well known and well documented, but there's actual reasons behind it. Liking yourself creates an emotion of well-being. That's why it's important that you like yourself. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, or you shouldn't already know. You need to like yourself. You need to like what you're doing, because we get more bang for the buck. Money is a form of voting. I agree with that. That's a principle that some activists like to point out. Money is voting. But it's not the only way to vote.